Welcome to Quick Take. This is where we talk about the questions that are on the minds of executives everywhere. Welcome, James. How are you?
I'm proud to be here, proud to serve.
Proud to be here and proud to serve. Thank you for that. That makes me feel very confident that we are going to forge into a topic that's interesting and enlightening. So, what is that?
Oh, I don't know. I was waiting for you. I thought you might just have one that I could to comment on. Um, Surprise me.
Okay, let's talk about the concept of, and this is something that you and I have chatted about, the concept of, is it really lonely at the top? And what does that
Ah,
mean?
yeah, that's a great topic. That's a great topic. Yeah, I think before we go totally nerdy on that, I mean, I think the word lonely is perhaps the trigger phrase there. I mean, what do we really mean by lonely? I mean,
Yeah,
plenty of people come by. You're very popular. You get free lunches. Um, there's a line of people trying to get in to see you.
yeah,
So you're hardly without company. But I don't think that's
yeah.
what that phrase really means. And I suspect now that I think about it, that's probably translated from Latin, and we've just poorly translated it. Um, I will research that, or I'm sure somebody will send me a note here and about before this episode is over, telling me it's actually French and you're an idiot, which is entirely possible. Um, but yeah, I think that at the end of the day, the reality is that as leaders, we are not able to behave and perform as other people, uh, specifically because of our role, and so that group element that is so powerful often fails us as leaders. So we are, maybe better ways to phrase it, we are alone at the top, and that comes with challenges.
Yeah, to me it's the responsibility of the role that you have because
Mm,
you have to make sure that you motivate, you drive engagement, you help people know how to apply their best self. And so some of that is there's the voices in your head or the emotions that you're going through or the stresses that you're going
okay.
through you can't share.
Yeah, you're the only person that is. I get your point. I look at it a little differently, but I see what you're trying to say is that ultimately it's very difficult to be at the top because you are the one who has to make those decisions.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, I hear your point. And I think, at the end of the day, for us, for both of our points of view, it does come down to the fact that we aren't able to take advantage of maybe the networks and the connections and maybe the people around us that we have been able to lean on in the past. I talk with CIOs and CEOs all the time, and the best resource for support are each other, because we don't
Yeah.
need anything from each other. When a CTO calls me and says, "Hey, I've got this situation with my network," they're not calling me to tell me to fix the network. They're like, "How do I message this to my boss so I don't
Yeah.
get fired?" You know, and who in their company are they going to ask that question of, right? That's a lonely situation. That's a lonely feeling when everybody I work with every day can't be part of that decision. And that's hard.
And so what I'm a little bit struggling with, I don't want us to have a different point of view. There's definitely the kind of psychological aspect of your role, but there's also the responsibility because at the end of the day, you have to make a decision, is what you're saying, about the network or the router or something that has gone out, and how you're going to message that. So
Well,
that,
I think the loneliness, if we could just coalesce on the loneliness, which is ultimately the buck stops with you,
yeah,
and you're not able to always, because of your leadership role, you're not always capable of leveraging external resources. Now, obviously, any good leader is going to take the pulse of other people, but it's not the same.
yeah,
It's like when your grandmother says you're pretty. I mean, what does that really mean, right? I mean, grandma's sweet and all, but she can only see out of one eye, and her judgment is skewed. And I think that's a great example where, you know, I always think about it. Why is being lonely at the top? And one of them is because the power that you have reduces the clarity of communication. You
hmm,
don't have that consistency in the way that people communicate, and that's super challenging. And then that power dynamic changes the relationship, right?
Mhm.
Just like if grandma says her grandson is good looking, she's not going to say, or that relationship is going to be very different between that her grandson and the kid next door, right?
Yep.
That power dynamic is very different. And then why are people giving, that power has motivation behind it? Why are people coordinating with you and working with you? And so all those things come into play when it comes to dealing with being the leader. And that's why you're lonely at the top.
Yeah.
There's dynamics that are in play that makes it so you are the only person at the end of the day that has to make those decisions or can make those decisions.
Yeah. And, I work with a lot of senior executives, and what I have to help them with is that mindset around those decisions. Like, I
Mhm.
hear a lot of, but what do they think of that decision? Or what do I need to do
Oh,
about
yeah.
this? And how do I, like, there's a little bit of a hangover, like a
Oh, sure.
decision hangover that people go through. And how do you accelerate that? Or how do you get out of it without like the wanting to bring in people that you shouldn't, or overshare, or be
Oh, sure.
strong or confident in your decision, and kind of let those voices exit, stage right.
Yeah, I think as a leader, you have to realize that you're not going to be able to get the emotional or the social comfort that you probably want. And I think that the reality of that power dynamic needs to be something you accept. And it's hard when you work with people for a really long time and you forget that they're your friend, but maybe they're only really your friend because you're the boss. And that's
Yeah.
hard. That's a hard reality to swallow,
Yeah.
right? You know, it just it isn't easy, and you'd like to think it's not the case, but you'll never really know. You just start to realize that 5 years after you left the firm, and you don't see any of those people. Maybe the dynamic was purely professional, which isn't a bad thing. It doesn't make you a
Yeah.
horrible person, but it's just don't be delusional into thinking that power dynamic wasn't a huge factor.
Yeah. So how do leaders deal with this concept of, like, what are
Right.
the therapeutic things? What are the applications that you would
Sure.
suggest that people need to be mindful of?
Well, I think it's all about mindfulness in this regard. I think that the acknowledgement of the fact that the power, and first and foremost, know that the power is changing the way people communicate with you. It's unavoidable. And
Yeah.
to think that you're getting honesty and transparency from everybody is nice, but you have to understand that it's going through some sort of gauze. There's something in between that's real. Um, I've said it 1,000 times, and we talked about it last week, in fact, where you want to surround yourself by different types of people so you have different types of thought. And this is part of that, where your relationship reduces the type of communication you're going to get. So what you need to do is, if we talk about the first thing, you need to really go out and elicit more communication. You can't
Mhm.
expect it to come like a normal used to. So you have to be more aggressive in getting inputs and feedback. I think that's the first thing. Then you have to accept the fact that communication is going to be jaded. The power
Mhm.
dynamic is not is very much unavoidable. And I've talked about my group, the House of Genius, that we've done in the past, where we had executives coaching startups, and all of that coaching was done on a first name basis only. We eliminated the power dynamic, so
Yeah.
nobody was deferring to somebody who had a title of the vice president. It was just Jerry. Jerry had a good idea, or Jerry had a bad idea. I don't care what you do, Jerry. And so to eliminate that power dynamic is very powerful. So when you do go have issues as a leader, do the best you can to eliminate the power dynamic when you search for guidance or input. And then always question, realize that your power will be a motivator for people's communication. Everybody has a motivation. And so you have to expect that you have to take all the advice you get with a grain of salt. You gave a great example where there was a senior leader who was worried about the one of their executives' neighbors and what they were going to think, and she was worried about that whole situation. She's like, "Look, the reality is, you're the only one worried about that whole dynamic, and if you're assuming that you understand what the motivators are for that conversation, you're probably wrong." And so
Mhm.
know that there are weird motivations. The motivation for that communication could be because they want you to fail. That motivation could be because they want They want somebody else to succeed. You have to realize that A, everybody's motivated by something, and B, you probably don't know what that motivation is. So when you're taking in feedback or eliciting input, realize that everybody's motivated by something.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And I'll have you tell us those one more time. But before you do, I like the idea of separating kind of your person and the business.
Yeah,
So you can be
yeah,
really as objective as you can, and then be once you make a business decision that you feel really good about, you kind of have to just trust that that's a right choice and move forward and kind of let those voices be
yeah,
eliminated.
yeah. My pithy phrase I always give to new managers is I said, you want to be friendly, but not friends.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a harsh reality. And when we spend so much time with our coworkers and our peers, et cetera, it's hard to not say these are my friends. And
Yeah.
you hear work friends and that kind of jaded kind of conversation. But the truth is maintaining that gap, maintaining that objectivity is so important. And it has to be part of your calculus as an executive.
Yeah.
So I think those top three things to remember is, you're not, as a leader, it's lonely at the top because one, you're going to have a reduced amount of communication because of the power that you have. Two, any communication you get is going to be weird because of the power dynamic. You're
Mhm.
most of the time you're going to have somebody subordinate to you or at a minimum at a superior trying to give you advice. So there's going to be a power dynamic involved. And three, you got to remember that everybody's got a motivator. People are
Yeah.
motivated by something or another, and so there is an element of their personal perspective on that communication. So lonely at the top is real. It may not be lonely. It could be alone. It could be whatever you want it to be. But if you are working with folks and you think about those three perspectives, you can work through any challenge.
Oh, that was so good, James. Thanks for that. You gave me a lot of things to think about in terms of helping people get beyond that. But
Yeah, it's
looking at it
fun.
like that really helps. So thanks for that. This has been really interesting about loneliness and not, you know, what that means to you. But thanks for joining us, and make sure you comment below on what you want to see or what questions are hot on your mind, so that we can address those and bring them to one of our next episodes. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.